Fight fans, are back to Carl Cruz MMA. Today I'm with a returning guest to the platform. She's getting ready April 18th, making that UFC return, taking on JJ Aldrich, Canada, Winnipeg. Huge fight night card. She is Miss Jamey Lyn Horth. Jamey Lyn, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
Doing good. So here we are. We're just a couple weeks away from the bout. Is it pretty cool to get to do it in front of a live Canadian audience again?
Yeah, I mean, Edmonton was awesome. The energy of the crowd, like, what a cool experience to be able to fight on home soil. And, 9, 10 weeks out from this event, we were asking if we were going to get the opportunity to be on that card, with the fellow Melissa Croden and Jasmine Jasvicius. And at the time, my agents were pretty sure that we weren't going to get that opportunity. And then 6 weeks out, we get the call. So I'm really excited to get back in there and be back on home, Canadian soil and then do what we all love to do.
When you're dealing with, like, I would say, like a semi-short notice bout for this one, does that really stress the importance of training year-round?
Yeah, I mean, as an athlete, as a martial artist, yeah, I mean, it's important, especially in this sport and this team, with the UFC and stuff, like, kind of training all the time gives you that opportunity to take short notice fights, take fights, 5 days, 1 week notice, whatever. But it's also important too to like be able to have an off switch and not always be training. So when we reached out around 9, 10 weeks out, we were not taking our foot off the gas per se, but we kind of leaned back on the training, and my expectations in the gym are a little like less from my coaches. They're like, come when you're feeling good. Like, if you don't feel it today, like, don't come in. But I guess I'm just a creature of habit, and I'm, a bit of a jock, and I just love sport and activity. So for me, it's hard to keep me out of the gym, even when I don't have to be there. I just, what else am I going to do?
You finished the year 2025 on a really good note. Gained a big win over Tressa Bleda. I think you were an underdog going into that contest. You're able to pick up a big first-round finish. Looking back at it, what do you make of the performance?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like, you have all this time, like you were just saying, spending all the time in the gym. That's my life, is being in the gym, and then fight camp preparation for that fight. That was our third go at it with a matchup for Teresa and I. And I kind of knew I was going to be fighting her for 12 weeks, almost 10 weeks. So, we were constantly prepping for that. And then to get 2 minutes of ring time, it almost seems like you're robbed in a way. But, obviously, ultimately, at the end of the day, you get out uninjured and in and out in a quick, timely manner. It's also awesome to be able to do that. And I think it kind of just goes back and shows the roots of what I started out my pro career as, finishing fights, within the distance and, just minimal damage.
You've had some great contests in your time in the UFC. You're on a great 2-fight win streak, 2 very big dominant performances. The fight before that obviously didn't go your way against Maverick. Was there a turning point after that? You learned something that's giving you some positive juju right now from that contest?
Yeah, I mean, it's so crazy when I think about like the loss against Veronica and the loss against Maverick. Those are my only 2 losses in my whole MMA career, and I'm very fortunate for those losses because they create opportunities to grow, and I think that it's inevitable. It's a part of the game, winning and losing. And when you get that loss, or when you're told that you're losing or you lost, you think, oh shit, I didn't do anything right. Like, I must have looked terrible in there, and you get pretty hard on yourself. And then you go back and you rewatch it with the team, or you rewatch it and you're like, damn, that was a lot closer than I thought. You know what I mean? Arguably, those fights could have gone either way pretty easily. With, the fight with Miranda, there was 9 takedown attempts and she only got 1. And, that 1 takedown attempt, got her maybe that extra point, and I just didn't get up fast enough. So, this sport is very, forgiving, but also very unforgiving. And I'm just learning a lot, just growing into my boots, I guess you could say.
We talked about last time you were on here how the sport has grown and evolved over the years, and especially in Canada. When I was growing up, obviously you had the GSPs of the world, Rory McDonald's, Mark Hominick's, Carlos Newton's. But now we're starting to see women from Canada get in the action. I think this card is a great testament of that. Yourself's on here. You got Melissa on here. You got Jazz on here. Does this card really show how MMA has evolved all around, including women now?
Yeah, I think it's just, having this many females. I mean, Jillian Robertson's going to be around, and she won't be on the card, but that's another Canadian. And I think it's really awesome to see, Loopy's arguably a Canadian, not on this card, but fighting this weekend coming up. And I think it's just awesome to see the women of Canada sort of filling up the rankings and the cards. It's definitely that, in my opinion, shows growth, and everyone's becoming more supportive of that. And I think the female fights are sometimes arguably more entertaining. And there's not people that are like, oh, these women shouldn't be fighting. I mean, there's internet trolls, but I just feel like Canada and like as a whole, like support wise systems, like we're backed pretty well, and people are pretty excited for us. So I think that's a pretty cool feeling.
We're in an interesting time of MMA right now. Some people call it the Paramount era. Obviously, a lot more eyeballs now on it. The bonuses, you get a finish now, it's 25 grand. You get a fight of the night or finish bonus is $100,000. Pretty cool time that we're in right now. What do you make of all this?
I think it's friggin' awesome. I mean, it would have been nice if I got that bonus two weeks earlier when I fought in December, but no, I mean, I never asked for more than what I think I deserve, and at the moment, that's the fight that I had, and that's the opportunity I was given, and I'm just grateful to be a part of such a great company and be able to get in there and perform and fight as often as possible, and looking forward to chasing down that bonus and putting on a show in Winnipeg and putting myself in contenders for some of those big prizes that night. I think there's gonna be a lot of good fights in the card, and I think everybody's gunning for the same thing. But yeah, there's definitely some more incentives. They're pumped up a bit.
Absolutely. So during your time in the UFC, you found both the Apex as well as a live audience crowd. For you, does it matter? Do you prefer the smaller cage over the bigger cage? Does it matter to you?
I mean, honestly, I've said it so many times. I mean, it doesn't really matter where I fight. Like, fight week is a ball game of its own with weight cutting and media and all those responsibilities and expectations from them as well. And I mean, honestly, I could be fighting in someone's backyard. I'm still doing what I do, and the pay is the same. And I'm just grateful to be able to get in there as often as possible. And yeah, to me, it's cool. I get to say I went to all these places when I look back on it. But at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter. The Apex is cool for as a fan and a spectator, and as an athlete to hear your coach. Like, the sound in there is a lot different than a big venue. So they definitely has like different pros and cons to being in those different smaller spaces. But being in front of the crowd is cool. Like, that energy is something you can't really recreate unless you're in the arena and it's chanting and your music's on blast. So every opportunity it presents something different, and I'm just super stoked for both.
At this stage of your career, what's the ultimate goal?
Just keep climbing the ladder, just keep getting the fight opportunities and seizing them, and just trying to put on the best performance that I can, for the entertainment side of it, but also just being true to myself and just going out there and fighting hard and trying to secure the win and climbing up the rankings.
Absolutely. For you, when you look at your record, you've always been taking tough fights. So on the regional scene, obviously now in the UFC. For you, how important has that been to consistently test yourself?
I think it kind of just stays true to the motto that we've always ran, is that we never say no to fights. And every opportunity that I was given, before making it to the UFC, I've always accepted the challenge. And I think just because of that, and the nature of the people that I've surrounded myself, coaches and teammate wise around here, I've always been forced to have to fight and tread water. So I think it's built me in such a short time to be able to go toe to toe with some of these girls. I've been doing it for a very long time, because I'm not a stranger to the pressure. I'm not a stranger to these tough fights, because now when you look around the room, every fight's a tough fight. It doesn't matter left or right. So I think that leading up to my career of taking those fights that I did, it's given me that opportunity to be in here with such a small record and time frame.
With the win over JJ, obviously that would make it 3 fight winning streak here. Do you feel you're getting close to the top 15 ranking if you get the job done here?
Yeah, I mean, I get the job done with JJ. I believe she's in the top 15 or 14. So I'm not exactly sure how they all make all these rankings work, but I think that'd give me a good jump into the top 15. And when you look in the top 15, there's some girls in there that are just not active right now, or starting families and stuff. So I think there's going to be some shifts over the next year, even next few months with the top 15. So yeah, I'm not going to put a bunch of emphasis on like that I have to get this fight because I want to be there. I think it's just that's just the nature of how it goes, is, just one step at a time. And the task at hand is to be JJ. And then I guess that falls me into the top 15. That'd be freaking awesome.
Speaking of JJ, overall, what do you think of her as an opponent?
Yeah, I think it's a great matchup. Again, I'm no stranger to the southpaw position. I feel like I've strangely had like 5 or 6 southpaws, which I find is quite weird because I have friends and teammates that have been fighting and have 15-4 records and have never fought southpaws. So yeah, I think it's a good matchup for the striking aspect. Obviously I have the height and the reach advantage, and my style is aggressive. So I think it's a very good matchup, and my team's super confident. And they've been looking at this matchup for a while now, and then when it got offered to us, we didn't hesitate. So I'm really excited to get in there and do some work.
A lot of fight fans really like to watch you fight because when you go in there, you're always looking for the finish. For you, how much pride do you take in that style?
Yeah, again, it just goes back to my roots. We've always been trying to find ways to finish fights. And, when you're in there sometimes, and in previous fights, in my earlier pro career, I've had injuries where it's like, hey, we got to get the job done quick. Like, use the IQ, keep your cool, but like, let's look for the finish. And I think, everyone's looking for the finish, but, I think just having an educated, sort of calm demeanor and composure when you're trying to get that job done is what makes it more successful. And just spending time on the mats preparing for that and different styles. So yeah, I think it's going to be good.
Absolutely. You mentioned one of your training partners a little earlier, Loopy. Obviously, she's got a big contest coming up, Tatiana Suarez.
Yeah.
What do you make of that fight?
I think it's a great fight. Loopy's a dog. If you want to talk about someone that puts on a show and goes in there and fights tough and bites down on the mouth guard, that's one of them. We fought twice as amateurs, and since then we've just been teammates and like family. And just surrounded by such a good system. We have the same coaching staff. We work and train together 4 days a week. So watching her go through this whole process, preparing for this fight, like, she's just so tough mentally and physically. And, her sister's been in her corner and is in her corner, and went to the Olympics this last year and is left-handed. And it just couldn't be a better sort of story, to have Anna and Loopy and them together and watching that process unfold. And I'm really excited for her, and I have really good feelings about this weekend, and I just want her to go in and do what Loopy does and throw some bombs.
Another really cool thing about this Winnipeg card is for the first time in a while, we have a Canadian guy, Mike Malott, headlining the thing. For the growth and development of MMA in Canada, isn't it important that a guy like Mike Malott becomes a superstar and further cements himself in the UFC?
Yeah, I think it's freaking awesome. Just any Canadian athlete, just any Canadian sport. I think it's great to have top dogs. And, I think Mike Malott's worked really hard, and I had the opportunity to train alongside him when I went out to NTT last October and preparing Jazz for her fight in Vancouver. And yeah, just an awesome dude and an awesome person, and someone that works really hard. And in my short visits with him and conversation, I just get that GSP vibe. Like, this guy works and lives, eats, sleeps martial arts, and he's the epitome of an athlete. And I think this is something that he deserves, and I'm really excited for him, and I'm super hopeful, and all the best to him and his team for this fight coming up. And I just think it's awesome. Like, why wouldn't you want to be like the star of something? It's an extra pressure and stuff, but it's earned, and he's definitely earned that position. And I think he's going to be very, very stoked to have a good fight.
It's pretty cool to see where MMA is in this day and age. 15, 20 years ago, it wasn't as socially accepted. People were like, what are you doing with your life if you were telling me you were a fighter? Now we're seeing kids do jiu-jitsu at like 6, 7, 8 years old. There's youth MMA around some aspects of the parts of the world. People are turning amateur fights, turning pro at 19, 20 years old. And UFC 21, 22. Is it pretty cool to see where this has come and grown?
Yeah, it's awesome. I just think too, like, as a athlete myself, and I know for myself in my community, I've played sports my whole life, and I've always felt like giving back was my way of saying thank you to all the volunteer coaches and stuff that I've had over the years. And it's really cool to watch, because we own a martial arts studio here, my husband and I, and it's really cool to see the kids come in and how excited they get, and to be able to share sort of my experiences and my knowledge with them at such a young age. I think it's so awesome, because I got into martial arts late. So I never really had that opportunity from people to get, that as a kid, sort of see like a star or an idol and follow that person. I've had obviously like teammates that have fought and, are now retiring and have become to coaches and share that love and knowledge. But to be able to give back to the youth and the community and see it sort of growing and being, a lot more respected martial arts, not so savage and like violent, and has such a negative like connotation around it. I think it's freaking awesome. I just love, connecting with the community and connecting with the youth and the up and coming, because hey man, like they're the future too. So
Do you get more nervous when you watch your training partners fight or your students fight?
oh yeah. And then I get a taste of my own medicine because my mom and them just freak out all the time. And I'm like, it's not even that big. You guys are more nervous than I am. And then I watch someone like, I'm going to be shitting my pants, I'll tell you, this weekend for Loopy. Yeah, I think it's more nerve wracking to watch teammates and friends and our students compete. And even in like small little, jujitsu tournaments or something local, like, yeah, it's just, you care so much about these people, right? So that they're a part of you and you're a part of them. And it's very much an emotional connection for sure.
You've referred to yourself as a martial artist a couple times in this interview, and that's a term that not everybody uses to depict themselves in this sport anymore. For you, what does it mean to call yourself a martial artist?
I mean, I guess I could label myself that. I know I said it a few times. I mean, martial arts, I live, sleep, and eat, breathe it, man. I'm in the gym doing jujitsu. I'm in a gi. I'm in no gi. I'm doing kickboxing. I'm doing wrestling. I'm boxing. I'm MMA. I'm Muay Thai. Like I have a coach for each one of those different fields that all work together. I'm always just trying to sponge and learn and bring myself down and visualize. And I feel like my chiropractor who I'd seen, earlier, she's like, the grandmaster, the chi, the guy that can do things without touching people. Like, I just am always trying to emulate and put myself in those shoes and try to be and bring the best product that I can, for my sport. It was the same when I was a soccer player. It's the same when I play baseball. Why not try to do things to your best ability, and why not surround yourself and with the knowledge, to be the best and start to emulate what you are. Like we're professional MMA fighters, we're martial artists. You know what I mean? So why not be that?
During your soccer career, if someone would tell you that you'd be fighting in the UFC and on the verge of being a top 15 ranked fighter, do you believe them?
No, martial arts and fighting was definitely not a part of my family. Like I said, I never got into martial arts until I was 23, 24, and I only got into it as a cross-training piece to supplement my soccer career. And then when I was in the gym, I was told once I came, I would never leave. And here we are. I'm still in the gym and I never left. But it was kind of ironic. It was like full circle. Yesterday while I was doing strength and conditioning, my coach was doing a private with a young girl who's playing soccer. She's probably 16 or so, 17. And she just got back from a soccer tournament that they were doing in Europe. They did like a Germany, Holland, France sort of tour. And it was with the same school, the European football school that I went to when I was her age. And my coach said, okay, well, look at Jamey. If your soccer career doesn't work out, you could be a professional UFC fighter too.
There you go. Some people are watching this now. Obviously, Paramount's helping. And I think for the most part, fight fans understand that you guys are trying to get bigger fights, win belts, and all that fun stuff. But very few people, in my opinion, understand the fight outside the fight. And to me, that's a fight not to have clock it at 9 o'clock in the morning, clock it at 5. That's that fight to secure financial freedom. It's the fight to live life on your terms. I can't even talk right now. Not follow societal norms and live life your way. For you, has this been a big part of the journey?
Yeah, sorry. So for me, like the big part of my journey, I mean, I retired from my 9-to-5 job, in 2021 to focus on what I was supposed to be a part of Contender Series at that time. And that opportunity sort of just got taken away with some visa issues at the time. But like it's hard, like how to have a 9-to-5 job and train the way I do, because I travel so much for my training. It's just not doable. So I have all my eggs in this basket. I have plans and things to do once I retire, and not a lot of people do. So I guess, sort of not answering your question, but, it's always nice to have a plan. It's always nice to, make sure that you're settled and ready for what may come, shortly after you're done your career. This isn't forever. So we always make the saying, like, make hay while the sun shines. And that's just what we're doing. We're just going to keep pushing and, building and learning and supporting. And yeah, I'm definitely not a fighter bum that lives on people's couches. I do have my own house. I drive my own car. I have dogs, and I do buy my own groceries. But I do have a lot of support in that capacity. And Squamish has been so awesome to me over the years, supporting that dream, and making sure that I, don't go hungry.
All right, Jamey, last question for you. In a perfect world, what's the outcome April 18th when you make your return to the UFC against JJ Aldrich?
I think something along the lines of the trend that I've been on. Let's get some good striking in and let's get a finish.
Absolutely. So if we win the $100,000 bonus, we're going to do a lot of Tim Hortons, a lot of roll up the rims coming.
It's actually quite funny. People love Tim Hortons, and I'm not a huge Tim Hortons fan.
What?
I'm not. I know. I worked there. It was one of my first jobs. So not because I worked there do I not like it. I'm a coffee snob. And I prefer to find little, like, hole in the wall cafes that, like, they're not hole in the walls around here, but I prefer, like, fancy coffee. I'm a bit of a snob.
There you go. Well, Jamey, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to talk with me. Good luck, and really excited for the fight.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That's it for us today. Carl Prusa. She is Miss Jamey Lyn Horth. You can watch her take down JJ Aldrich, Winnipeg, April 18th. Don't miss it, fight fans. Take care.